A woman sits motionless in a darkened room, pressing a pair of heavy headphones against her ears. She turns the volume to absolute maximum, forcing her mind to focus on the pulsing rhythm. She attempts to drown out the reality happening on the other side of the wall. She knows at this exact second her husband is being murdered in the very next room. This is the verified case of Maria, a young Syrian woman whose life unraveled in a remote mountain village in Lebanon. To understand how Maria reached this point, we must dismantle the crime scene backward, examining the sequence of neglect and manipulation that led here. This state of forced dissociation is the final stage of a psychological trap, a state where a person's surroundings have been systematically turned against them. This timeline is a psychological autopsy. We start at the murder climax, tracing backward through blackmail, grooming, and isolation. The mechanics move through 3 lanes: Maria's personal vulnerability, the predator's actions, and the cultural leverage used to maintain control. Our investigation focuses on how a snare is constructed so tightly that a human being is paralyzed into total complicity. To find the start of that snare, we have to look at the psychological vacuum created in this household years before the crime. Maria grew up in a bustling Syrian town where she was raised with a single core philosophy. A woman's duty was to protect her home by enduring any hardship in absolute silence. At age 20, she entered an arranged marriage with a neighbor named Hassan, a man who followed the same strict traditional customs. Shortly after the wedding, Hassan moved the family to find agricultural work in a remote mountainous valley in Lebanon, far from her known community. In this new environment, Hassan imposed absolute isolation. She could not speak to neighbors, leave the house, or contact her family. While Maria was locked inside, Hassan spent his days here, in the agricultural fields, working from dawn until dusk. For 3 years, Maria's only regular human contact was with her 2 young children. This combination of geographic distance and a cultural mandate for silence created a psychological vacuum, leaving Maria starved for validation and vulnerable to anyone who offered it. Desperate for interaction, Maria eventually convinced Hassan to let her visit an elderly neighbor, Ibrahim, for a few hours each morning. Ibrahim lived with her adult son, Ibrahim, a man whose psychological profile was defined by a detachment from reality. Ibrahim used his mother as a source of intelligence, gathering intimate details of Maria's loneliness. From these details, he built a mental architecture of a woman he'd never met, developing a dangerous obsession based entirely on her vulnerabilities. To secure a face-to-face meeting, Ibrahim deliberately skipped work one morning and waited for Maria to arrive at his mother's house. During that first encounter, Ibrahim used the information he had gathered to offer Maria the specific emotional validation Hassan had denied her for years. By mapping out Maria's emotional starvation beforehand, Ibrahim was able to present himself as the exact solution to her isolation. The next day, Ibrahim called her phone. Maria initially reacted with fury, threatening to expose him to her husband to protect her marriage. She stopped visiting the neighbor, telling Hassan only that the old woman had become too intrusive, and she returned to her life of total solitude. Hassan noticed his wife's depression, but misread the cause, destined to be together. Over the next 7 months, they carried out an illicit affair. Ibrahim's obsession shifted toward possessiveness, and he began demanding that Maria divorce Hassan. Maria was now living in a state of false pleasure, an illusion of affection that required her to maintain a toxic lie while her actual life began to crumble. Eventually, the infatuation faded. Maria realized the extent of the damage to her life and called Ibrahim to end the affair permanently. Ibrahim's romantic persona vanished instantly. He revealed that he had been secretly recording their intimate conversations and taking photographs throughout the affair. He told her that if she left him, he would send every recording and photo to her husband and her conservative family in Syria. In Maria's community, these recordings functioned as a death warrant, cutting off every possible exit she had. With her survival at stake, the only path Ibrahim left open led to a single conclusion: Hassan had to die. On the night of the murder, Ibrahim entered the house and handed Maria a pair of headphones. He told her to play music at full volume while he went into the bedroom. The headphones were a tool to ensure Maria remained paralyzed while the crime was carried out, forcing her to participate in the silence she had been taught since childhood. After the murder, Maria followed Ibrahim's script, telling detectives that an armed gang had forced their way into the home. The apartment floor plan immediately contradicted her story. Detectives found every door and window completely intact, showing no signs of forced entry. Inside the bedroom, Hassan was found peaceful in his sleepwear. The lack of defensive wounds indicated he was killed before he could react. Phone records soon uncovered the year-long connection between Maria and Ibrahim, and a search of Ibrahim's phone revealed the cache of blackmail files he had used to corner her. Faced with this evidence, Maria confessed. Both she and Ibrahim were sentenced to death for premeditated murder. The psychological trap that felt so inescapable to Maria dissolved the moment it was measured against the physical evidence of the crime scene. To avoid a scandal that would destroy her family, Maria followed a path that led to the permanent destruction of her home. The cost of the affair was an innocent man's life and 2 children left without parents. While the psychological mechanics of the trap are complex, the human result is simple. This case stands as a warning about the lethality of isolation and the devastating consequences of chasing a false pleasure.